Jordan Kennedy's stomach churns as he watches the unthinkable unfold before him. A beautiful hydrogen female, her iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh lights of the alien space station, is thrust onto a makeshift stage. Her own family, expressionless and cold, stands behind her as the auctioneer begins the bidding. This is no ordinary trade, it's a slave auction. The bustling station, a hub of interstellar commerce, suddenly feels suffocating. Aliens of various species push past Jordan, eager to catch a glimpse of the proceedings. The human trader grips the railing, knuckles white as he processes the scene. The hydrogen, despite their advanced technology, have revealed a dark underbelly to their culture. Jordan's mind races. Earth's recent trade agreement with the hydrogen hangs by a thread. Any interference could spark an interstellar incident, but as he looks at the young hydrogen female's eyes, filled with fear and desperation, he knows he can't stand idly by. The bidding intensifies. Cruel-looking slavers, their intentions clear in their hungry gazes, raise the price higher and higher. Jordan's hand shoots up, outbidding them all. The crowd falls silent. The auctioneer, a tall, spindly alien, peers at Jordan with suspicion. "All of it," Jordan says, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "I'll empty my accounts." A murmur ripples through the crowd. The slavers glare at Jordan, their hands inching towards concealed weapons. The hydrogen female, Astra, Jordan learns from the transaction details, stares at him in disbelief. As the credits transfer, Jordan feels the weight of his decision. He's just spent everything he has, but the relief in Astra's eyes tells him it's worth it. He steps forward to claim her, only to be blocked by station security. "You're interfering with legitimate business," a bulky, tentacled officer growls. "You're under arrest." Jordan grabs Astra's hand and runs. They weave through the shocked crowd, security and enraged slavers in hot pursuit. Astra stumbles, unused to sudden freedom, but Jordan pulls her along. They round a corner, and Jordan spots his salvation, the docking bay where his ship, the Star Chaser, waits. They sprint across the bay, ducking under loading equipment and dodging bewildered dock workers. The ship's ramp lowers at Jordan's command. They scramble inside just as blaster fire erupts behind them. Jordan throws himself into the pilot's seat, fingers flying over the controls. The Star Chaser roars to life, lifting off as more security forces pour into the bay. The ship shudders as it takes hits from the station's defense systems, but Jordan's skilled piloting guides them to open space. As the stars streak by, Jordan turns to Astra. She cowers in the co-pilot seat, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "I'm not going to hurt you," Jordan says softly. "You're free now." Astra's brow furrows, struggling to comprehend. In her world, such selfless actions don't exist. Before she can respond, an urgent communication from Earth's Space Command flashes on the screen. Jordan's heart sinks as he reads the message. The Hirogen government demands Astra's return and his extradition. Earth, fearing the technological superiority of the Hirogen, is considering compliance. Jordan sets course for a remote human colony, his mind racing to find a solution. He needs to expose the hydrogen slave trade to the galactic community, but with both human and hydrogen authorities after them, the odds seem insurmountable. As the Star Chaser hurtles through space, Jordan realizes that his impulsive act of kindness has set in motion events that could reshape the balance of power between humans and hydrogen forever. The Star Chaser shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the strain of their desperate flight evident in every groan of its hull. Jordan gripped the controls tightly, his eyes scanning the readouts with growing alarm. "We're not going to make it to New Haven," he said, his voice tight. Astra, still struggling to understand the concept of freedom, looked at him with wide, questioning eyes. "The ship, it's failing?" she asked hesitantly, her iridescent scales shimmering in the dim light of the cockpit. Jordan nodded grimly. "We pushed her too hard. We need to set down now." As if on cue, warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. Jordan's hands flew over the controls, searching for a safe haven. His eyes locked onto a nearby planet, a vibrant blue and green orb suspended in the void. "There," he said, more to himself than to Astra. "It's our only chance. The Star Chaser plummeted towards the planet's surface, its descent more controlled fall than landing. Jordan fought the controls, sweat beading on his brow as he struggled to keep them from burning up in the atmosphere. They burst through a layer of clouds, revealing a vast expanse of dense alien jungle. Jordan's eyes darted across the landscape, searching for a clearing large enough to set down. "Hold on!" he shouted as he spotted a break in the canopy. The ship screamed in protest as he wrenched it towards the opening. They hit hard, the impact throwing them against their restraints. The Star Chaser skidded across the clearing, carving a deep furrow in the alien soil before finally coming to rest at the edge of the tree line. For a moment, silence reigned. Then with a groan, Jordan unclasped his harness and turned to Astra. "Are you all right?" She nodded, her movements jerky and uncertain. I think so. Where are we?" Jordan activated the external sensors, studying the readouts. Uncharted planet, breathable atmosphere at least, gravity slightly lower than Earth standard. He managed a weak smile. "Welcome to Sanctuary. Seems as good a name as any." They gathered what supplies they could salvage from the crippled ship: emergency rations, portable shelter, and vital communication equipment. As they stepped out onto the alien world, the air was thick with humidity and filled with unfamiliar scents. Jordan's eyes widened as he took in their surroundings. The jungle pulsed with life, strange and beautiful. Massive fronds swayed in a breeze they couldn't feel, and vines thick as a man's arm twisted up towering trees. "We need to set up camp," Jordan said, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. "Stay close. We don't know what kind of predators might be out there." As they worked to erect the portable shelter, Jordan noticed movement in the corner of his eye. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the light, but as the twin suns of this alien world began to set, the movement became more pronounced. Swarms of bioluminescent creatures, reminiscent of Earth's fireflies but in a dizzying array of colors, emerged from the underbrush. They danced around Jordan and Astra, seemingly drawn to their technology. "Fascinating," Jordan breathed, watching as the creatures swirled around his communicator. Then his wonder turned to alarm as the device began to spark and smoke. "Damn it! They're interfering with the electronics somehow." Quickly, they shut down all non-essential systems, plunging their small camp into near darkness. The bioluminescent swarms gradually dispersed, leaving them alone in the alien night. As they huddled in their shelter, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They were stranded on an unknown world, pursued by both human and Hirogen authorities, with no means of calling for help. Jordan glanced at Astra, her scales reflecting the faint light from outside. She met his gaze, and for the first time since he'd rescued her, he saw something other than fear in her eyes. There was curiosity there, and perhaps a glimmer of hope. "Why did you do it?" she asked softly. "Why risk everything for me?" Jordan was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "No one deserves to be enslaved." Astra's brow furrowed, struggling with the concept. In the close confines of the shelter, Jordan could see the conflict in her eyes, the clash between everything she'd been taught and the reality of his actions. Before she could respond, a low rumble in the distance caught their attention. It wasn't thunder. The sound was too regular, too mechanical. Jordan's heart raced as he realized what it meant. "Vehicles," he whispered, peering out of the shelter. In the pre-dawn light, he could make out the faint glow of headlights through the trees. "Someone's coming!" As the rumble grew louder, Jordan and Astra exchanged worried glances. Had they been found by Earth forces, Hirogen pursuers, or something else entirely? The vehicles broke through the tree line, rugged, all-terrain vehicles clearly designed for this harsh environment. They came to a stop near the crashed Star Chaser, and figures began to emerge. Jordan's relief at seeing human forms quickly gave way to suspicion. These weren't Earth military or any other official presence he recognized. They moved with purpose, scanning the area with advanced equipment. A man stepped forward, his gaze locked on Jordan and Astra's shelter. "We know you're in there," he called out. "I'm Marcus Reed. We're not here to harm you, but you need to come with us. Now." Jordan's mind raced. Who were these people? How had they found them so quickly? And most importantly, could they be trusted? As Marcus and his team approached, Jordan realized they were about to find out. Whatever came next, he knew their adventure on this alien world was far from finished. Jordan tensed as Marcus and his team approached, his hand instinctively moving to shield Astra. But as the group drew closer, he noticed something unexpected in their demeanor, a mix of curiosity and caution rather than hostility. Marcus stopped a few paces away, hands raised in a placating gesture. "We've been monitoring this area for some time," he explained, his voice low and measured. "Your ship's crash didn't go unnoticed. We need to move you to a secure location before others pick up on the disturbance." Jordan exchanged a glance with Astra, weighing their options. With no functioning ship and limited supplies, they were in no position to refuse help. Reluctantly, he nodded. "All right," Jordan said, stepping out of the shelter with Astra close behind. "Lead the way." The journey through the dense jungle was arduous, even with the aid of the all-terrain vehicles. Strange calls echoed through the canopy, and more than once Jordan caught glimpses of creatures unlike anything he'd ever seen. After several hours of travel, they arrived at a clearing where a massive rock face loomed before them. Marcus approached what appeared to be a solid wall and pressed his hand against it. To Jordan and Astra's amazement, a section of the rock face shimmered and disappeared, revealing a hidden entrance. "Welcome," Marcus said with a hint of pride, "to Sanctuary Base." As they entered the facility, Jordan and Astra's eyes widened in awe. The cavernous interior housed a state-of-the-art research complex, with laboratories, living quarters, and what appeared to be a small shipyard. A woman in her late 40s approached them, her dark hair streaked with gray, and her eyes sharp with intelligence. "I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead xenobiologist here at Sanctuary," she introduced herself. "We have much to discuss." Over the next few hours, Dr. Rodriguez explained the facility's mission to study the planet's unique ecosystem. She detailed the importance of maintaining absolute secrecy to protect both the research and the delicate balance of Sanctuary's environment. "We can help repair your ship," Dr. Rodriguez said, her tone serious. "But you must understand, you can't stay here. The longer you remain, the greater the risk to our operation." Jordan nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We appreciate any help you can provide. We don't want to endanger your work here." As they were shown to separate quarters, Jordan couldn't help but notice the growing connection between himself and Astra. The shared ordeal had created a bond, and he found himself drawn to her resilience and curiosity about human ways. In the privacy of her room, Astra ran her fingers along the smooth walls, marveling at the human ingenuity that had created this hidden sanctuary. She thought of Jordan's selfless act in saving her, so at odds with everything she'd been taught about humans. For the first time, she began to question the values and norms that had shaped her entire existence. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, Admiral Thomas Chen sat in his dimly lit office, poring over classified reports. The incident at the space station had raised red flags, and Chen had launched a covert investigation into the Hyrogen slave trade. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. Evidence of corruption ran deep, implicating officials in both Hyrogen and human governments. Chen realized with growing horror that certain factions benefited from maintaining the current power dynamic, profiting from the suffering of others. His fingers flew over the keyboard, encoding a message to be sent through secure channels. He had decided to secretly support Jordan and Astra's cause, seeing it as a chance to expose the truth and potentially reshape human-Hyrogen relations for the better. Back on Sanctuary, Jordan found himself spending more time with Astra as they waited for the repairs on the Star Chaser to be completed. They shared stories of their respective worlds, each fascinated by the other's perspective. "I never imagined humans could be so complex," Astra admitted one evening as they walked through the base's hydroponics garden. "My people always portrayed your kind as simple, driven only by base desires." Jordan smiled ruefully. "We're far from perfect, but we're capable of great things when we choose to be better." He paused, looking at her intently. "Just as I believe your people are." Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed by the research team. Some members, inspired by Jordan's actions, began to question the morality of keeping Sanctuary's resources secret from the rest of humanity. Hushed conversations in corners of the facility hinted at a growing divide among the team. Dr. Rodriguez, keenly aware of the mounting tension, redoubled efforts to repair the Star Chaser. She knew that the longer Jordan and Astra remained, the greater the risk of irreparable fractures within her team. As the ship neared completion, Dr. Rodriguez called Jordan and Astra to her office. "We've made a decision," she said, her expression grave. "We're going to provide you with some of our research data on Sanctuary's flora. The healing properties we've discovered, they could be crucial in gaining support for your cause." Jordan's eyes widened at the implications. "Thank you," he said softly, understanding the enormous trust being placed in them. As they left Dr. Rodriguez's office, Jordan and Astra's hands brushed, sending a jolt of electricity through them both. They paused, eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding. The challenges ahead were immense, but neither of them would face them alone. Unknown to the inhabitants of Sanctuary, a Hirogen scout ship hung in high orbit, its sensors probing the planet below. The captain, intrigued by faint energy readings and aware of the recent incident involving a human and one of their own, made a decision. "Prepare a landing party," he ordered, his eyes fixed on the swirling blue and green orb before him. "We will investigate these anomalies ourselves." As the Hirogen ship began its descent, Jordan and Astra stood before the newly repaired Star Chaser, their hearts heavy with the weight of their mission and the uncertain future that lay ahead. As the Hirogen ship began its descent, Jordan and Astra exchanged a determined look. Their time at Sanctuary was coming to an abrupt end. Alarms blared throughout the hidden facility, startling researchers and sending them scrambling to secure their work. Dr. Rodriguez burst into the hangar, her face a mask of urgency. "We've got company," she announced, her voice tight. "Hirogen scout ship just entered orbit. Our sensors picked them up moments ago." Jordan's muscles tensed as he processed the information. "How long until they reach us?" "Minutes, if that," Dr. Rodriguez replied, her fingers flying over a nearby console. "I'm activating our planetary shield. It should prevent them from landing or getting a clear scan of the surface." The air hummed as an invisible barrier enveloped the planet. Jordan watched the diagnostics on the screen, his mind racing. They couldn't stay here. Their presence put everyone at Sanctuary at risk. An idea formed, dangerous but necessary. "We'll use the Star Chaser as a decoy," he said, turning to Astra. "Draw them away from here." Astra's eyes widened, then narrowed with grit. "I'm coming with you," she stated, her tone brooking no argument. "My knowledge of Hirogen tactics could be the difference between success and capture." Dr. Rodriguez hesitated, then nodded sharply. She pressed a data crystal into Jordan's hand. "Take this. It contains information about our healing flora. If you're cornered, it might buy you some leverage." As Jordan and Astra boarded the Star Chaser, the facility shuddered. Sparks erupted from nearby panels, and the hum of the planetary shield faltered. "Power surge!" Dr. Rodriguez shouted. "The shield's down!" Through the hangar's force field, they saw a small Hirogen shuttle streaking through the atmosphere. Jordan slammed his hand on the ship's startup sequence, and the Star Chaser roared to life. "Initiating cloaking device," he announced, fingers dancing across the controls. The ship shimmered, becoming invisible to the naked eye, and, hopefully, to Hirogen sensors. They slipped past the Hirogen ship in high orbit, Jordan's hands white-knuckled on the controls. Once clear of the planet's gravity well, he disengaged the cloak. The strain on the engines eased, but alarms immediately blared as the Hirogen vessel locked onto them. "They've spotted us," Astra said, sliding into the weapons station. "Pursuing at maximum speed." Jordan pushed the Star Chaser to its limits, weaving through the system's asteroid field. The ship bucked and shuddered, protests from overtaxed systems filling the cockpit. Astra's voice cut through the chaos. "I have a firing solution on their main propulsion." Jordan nodded, executing a tight roll to give her a clear shot. Astra's fingers danced across the targeting display, and a beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Star Chaser. It struck the Hirogen vessel's engines with surgical precision, leaving the ship dead in space. As they sped away from the disabled pursuer, Jordan plotted a course for New Haven. "We're not out of this yet," he warned, eyeing the fluctuating readouts. "That maneuver did a number on our engines." They made the jump to faster-than-light travel, but the Star Chaser's systems groaned under the strain. Barely an hour into their journey, alarms shrieked, and the ship dropped back into normal space with a bone-jarring thud. "Where are we?" Astra asked, scanning the unfamiliar starfield. Jordan shook his head, frustration evident in his voice. "Uncharted system. We need to set down for repairs before we can make another jump." As they maneuvered towards a promising planetoid, Jordan became acutely aware of Astra's presence beside him. The tight confines of the cockpit, the lingering adrenaline from their escape, it all combined to heighten the tension between them. Their eyes met, and for a moment the universe beyond the view screen ceased to exist. Jordan's hand moved of its own accord, brushing against Astra's scaled fingers. The contact sent a jolt through them both, and they leaned towards each other, drawn by an irresistible force. A harsh beep from the communication console shattered the moment. Jordan reluctantly turned away, activating the encrypted channel. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Jordan, Astra, I've been trying to reach you," Chen said, his voice tight with urgency. "We've received critical intelligence from Zaknar. The slave trade goes deeper than we imagined, reaching into the highest levels of both human and Hirogen government." Jordan's eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. Chen continued, outlining his plan to assemble a covert task force near the border of Hirogen space. "We need you there," Chen insisted. "The information you carry about Sanctuary's healing flora could be the key to negotiating with moderate Hirogen factions. It's our best chance at forging an alliance against the slave trade." As Chen transmitted the rendezvous coordinates, proximity alarms blared. Jordan's heart raced as he identified the new arrival, a Hirogen destroyer dripping with weaponry. Jordan and Astra exchanged a look, the weight of their decision heavy in the air between them. Push on to the rendezvous point, risking everything? Or seek temporary shelter, potentially losing their only chance to expose the slave trade and reshape human-Hirogen relations? The Hirogen ship loomed ever closer on the sensors, and time was running out. Out! Jordan's eyes darted between the looming threat on the sensors and Astra's determined face. In that split second, a decision crystallized. "We're pushing through," he announced, his hands flying over the controls. "Astra, initiate full cloaking sequence. We're going dark." Astra nodded, her fingers dancing across the console. Cloaking systems engaged, powering down non-essentials. The Star Chaser's lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the cockpit as system after system went offline. Jordan held his breath, guiding the ship on its precarious trajectory. They were now invisible to both eye and sensor, relying solely on their momentum to carry them past the Hirogen destroyer. Tension mounted as they drifted closer to the massive vessel. Through the view screen, Jordan could make out the destroyer's intimidating silhouette, jam-packed with weapons. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple as he fought the urge to make minute course corrections. Astra's voice was barely above a whisper. Entering their sensor range. Now! Seconds stretched into an eternity as they glided past the Hirogen ship. Jordan's knuckles were white on the controls, ready to take evasive action at the slightest sign of detection. But the destroyer remained oblivious to their presence, its powerful sensors sweeping harmlessly through the space occupied by the Star Chaser. As they cleared the danger zone, Jordan allowed himself a small exhale. "Reactivating systems," he said, his voice tight with residual tension. Light and power surged back through the ship. Astra's fingers flew over the navigation console, inputting the coordinates provided by Admiral Chen. "Course laid in," she reported. "Ready for jump on your mark." Jordan nodded, relief evident in his voice. "Engage." The Star Chaser leapt into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Hirogen threat far behind. As the familiar hum of the engines filled the cockpit, Jordan and Astra shared a look of triumph and shared relief. Hours later, they dropped out of FTL at the rendezvous point. Before them, a small but impressive array of human ships hung in space. The flagship, a sleek vessel easily twice the size of the others, dominated the formation. A transmission crackled through their comms. "Star Chaser, this is the UES Horizon. You are cleared for docking in Bay 3. Welcome to the task force. Jordan guided the ship into the cavernous docking bay, setting down with practiced ease. As the airlock cycled, he turned to Astra. Ready? She nodded, a mix of persistence and apprehension in her eyes. Let's do this. They were met by a stern-faced officer who escorted them through the ship's corridors. Crew members, both human and a smattering of alien races, watched them pass with undisguised curiosity. The sight of a human and Hirogen walking side by side was clearly not something they witnessed every day. The officer led them to a briefing room where Admiral Chen waited. The man's weathered face broke into a smile as they entered. Jordan, Astra, it's good to see you both in one piece. After brief introductions, Chen wasted no time getting down to business. He activated a holographic display showing a map of nearby sectors. We've received word from Zach Nar. He and his supporters are on the move, pursued by loyalist forces. Jordan leaned forward, studying the map. What's our play? Chen's expression turned grim. We're going in. Full task force, into Hirogen space. Astra's eyes widened. That's incredibly risky. It could be seen as an act of war. Or, Chen countered, it could be the catalyst for real change. We have a unique opportunity here, and we can't afford to let it slip away. As Chen outlined the plan, Jordan found his gaze drawn to Astra. She was fully engaged in the discussion, offering insights into Hirogen tactics and culture that could prove invaluable. He marveled at how far they'd come since their first encounter on the space station. Chen seemed to notice the connection between them as well. As the briefing concluded, he pulled Jordan aside. Your relationship with Astra, it's more than just professional, isn't it? Jordan hesitated, then nodded. Chen's face broke into a knowing smile. Good. We're going to need that. The two of you working together, it's a powerful symbol of what we're trying to achieve here. As they prepared to move out, Jordan and Astra found themselves with a rare moment alone. They stood at a viewport, watching as the task force prepared for the jump into Hirogen space. Are you ready for this? Jordan asked softly. Astra turned to him, her eyes meeting his. I'm not sure anyone can be truly ready for something like this, but I know I'm where I need to be. Their hands found each other, fingers intertwining, human and Hirogen, united in purpose and growing affection. As the stars outside began to streak, marking the beginning of their journey into uncertain territory, Jordan and Astra faced the future together, whatever it might hold. The task force dropped out of FTL on the fringes of Hirogen space. Immediately, alarms blared throughout the ship. A loyalist patrol had spotted them, and a tense standoff was rapidly developing. We need to act fast, Chen said, his voice tight with urgency. If we can't defuse this situation quickly, we'll lose our chance to reach Zachnar. Jordan's mind raced, piecing together a plan. He turned to Chen, his eyes alight with persistence. Sir, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our best shot. As Jordan outlined his plan to infiltrate the loyalist ships and broadcast evidence of the slave trade's corruption, Astra's expression shifted from shock to grudging admiration. It's crazy, she admitted, but it just might work. Chen listened intently, then nodded. Do it. Take whatever resources you need. Within minutes, Jordan and Astra were back aboard the Star Chaser, along with a small team of human specialists. As they prepared to launch, Jordan caught Astra's eye. Ready to make some history? She smirked, her hands steady on the controls. Let's show them what human Hirogen cooperation can really do. The Star Chaser slipped out of the Horizon's docking bay, its cloaking device rendering it invisible to the loyalist ships. As they approached the Hirogen vessels, tension mounted in the cockpit. Everything hinged on their ability to infiltrate the ships undetected and broadcast their evidence before being discovered. Astra's knowledge proved invaluable as they bypassed the first layer of Hirogen security. We're in, she announced, her voice tight with concentration. But we need to move fast. They'll notice the intrusion soon. Jordan nodded, guiding the ship closer to the lead Hirogen vessel. Then let's not waste any time. Team, prepare to board. We've got a message to deliver. As they docked with the Hirogen ship, alarms began to blare in the distance. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Jordan and Astra exchanged a determined look as they prepared to disembark. The fate of human-hydrogen relations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. With a shared nod of willpower, Jordan and Astra stepped through the airlock and onto the hydrogen vessel. The corridors were a maze of alien architecture, but Astra moved with purpose, guiding them swiftly towards the ship's central communication hub. Jordan and the human specialists followed close behind, their footsteps muffled by the ship's humming systems. "Here," Astra whispered, gesturing to a sealed doorway. One of the specialists stepped forward, attaching a small device to the control panel. Seconds later, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, banks of unfamiliar technology lined the walls. Astra's fingers flew across the controls, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. "We're in," she announced. "Uploading the data now." Jordan kept watch at the door, his pulse racing. Every second felt like an eternity as the evidence of the slave trade's corruption began to stream through the hydrogen ship's communication systems. Suddenly, angry shouts echoed from down the corridor. "We've been detected," Jordan warned. "Time to go." They sprinted back towards the Star Chaser, alarms blaring all around them. As they reached the airlock, a group of hydrogen security forces rounded the corner, weapons raised. "Go!" Jordan shouted, providing covering fire as the others boarded. Astra grabbed his arm, pulling him to safety just as the airlock sealed shut. The Star Chaser disengaged from the hydrogen vessel, narrowly avoiding a barrage of weapons fire. As they sped back towards the human task force, the impact of their broadcast became apparent. Several hydrogen ships broke formation, their commanders clearly grappling with the revelations. "We did it," Astra breathed, her eyes wide with a mix of exhilaration and disbelief. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Excellent work. We're moving in to extract Zaknar and his supporters. Provide cover for their shuttle." Jordan nodded, maneuvering the Star Chaser into position. The space around them erupted into chaos as loyalist hydrogen ships clashed with the defectors and human vessels. Zaknar's shuttle emerged from the fray, making a beeline for the horizon. Jordan positioned the Star Chaser between the shuttle and incoming fire, their shields absorbing hit after hit. "Our shields are failing," Astra reported, her voice tight with tension. A massive impact rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from the control panel. Jordan struggled to maintain their course, but it was clear the Star Chaser had taken critical damage. "We've lost engines," he announced grimly. "Astra, send out a distress call. We're going to have to make an emergency landing." The horizon's cavernous cargo bay loomed before them. With what little power remained, Jordan guided the Star Chaser in for a rough landing. The ship skidded across the deck, coming to a jarring halt against a stack of supply crates. Smoke filled the cockpit as Jordan and Astra stumbled out, coughing. They were immediately surrounded by cheering human crew members, all reaching out to pat them on the back and shake their hands. "The heroes of the hour!" Admiral Chen's voice boomed as he strode across the cargo bay. Behind him, a tall hydrogen figure emerged, Zaknar, looking battered but alive. "Your actions today have changed everything," Zaknar said, his deep voice filled with gratitude. "But our work is just getting started." In the hours that followed, Jordan and Astra found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Zaknar revealed critical intelligence about the slave trade's central operations, allowing Admiral Chen to formulate a plan for a joint human hydrogen strike against their headquarters. As preparations for the strike began, Jordan couldn't help but notice the way crew members, both human and hydrogen, looked at him and Astra. Their partnership had become a symbol, a living example of what cooperation between their species could achieve. Admiral Chen pulled them aside, his expression serious. "I'm assigning you both a crucial role in the upcoming operation," he said. "You'll be leading a mixed human hydrogen strike team. Your ability to work together, to bridge our differences, it's exactly what we need right now." Jordan glanced at Astra, seeing his own mix of pride and apprehension reflected in her eyes. The weight of their new responsibilities settled heavily on his shoulders. As they left the briefing room, a group of human and hydrogen crew members approached, peppering them with questions about their experiences and relationship. Jordan felt Astra tense beside him, clearly uncomfortable with the scrutiny. Later, in the privacy of their shared quarters, Astra paced restlessly. "I never asked for this," she said, her voice low and frustrated. "To be some kind of symbol?" Jordan reached out, gently taking her hand. "I know," he said softly, "but maybe this is bigger than just us now." Astra met his gaze, conflict clear in her eyes. Before she could respond, an alert chimed on their communication panel. It was time to prepare for the mission briefing. As they made their way to the command center, Jordan's mind raced with the challenges ahead. The Joint Fleet was approaching the slave trade headquarters, a fortified space station in a remote star system. But new complications had arisen, threatening to unravel everything they had fought for. Jordan and Astra exchanged a look as they entered the command center, both acutely aware of the eyes upon them. Whatever personal struggles they faced, they knew the success of the mission, and perhaps the future of human-hydrogen relations, now rested squarely on their shoulders. As they entered the command center, a hush fell over the assembled officers. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the room, his face etched with concern. "Jordan, Astra," he nodded, gesturing them forward. "We've received new intel. The slave trade headquarters is more heavily fortified than we anticipated. Our original plan may no longer be viable." Zaknar stepped forward, his towering form casting a shadow over the holographic display. "We need a new approach, one that allows us to breach their defenses without alerting them to our presence." Jordan's eyes met Astra's, a silent understanding passing between them. He turned to Chen, his voice steady. "Sir, I believe we have a solution. The Star Chaser." Astra nodded, picking up his train of thought. "Its cloaking technology, combined with my knowledge of Hirogen security systems, could allow us to infiltrate the station undetected." Chen's eyebrows rose, considering the proposal. "It's risky," he mused, "but it might be our best shot. What's your plan?" As Jordan outlined their strategy, Astra felt a mix of pride and apprehension. Their partnership had evolved into something seamless, each anticipating the other's thoughts and actions. But the weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon them. Hours later, they stood in the hangar bay, the newly repaired Star Chaser gleaming before them. Jordan ran his hand along the ship's hull, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Ready for another adventure, old girl?" Astra watched him, a warmth spreading through her chest. She pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. "We should run one final systems check before departure." They boarded the ship, moving through the pre-flight sequence with practiced efficiency. As the hangar bay doors slid open, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond, Jordan felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. The Star Chaser slipped out of the horizon's protective embrace, its cloaking device rendering it invisible to both friend and foe. As they approached the slave trade headquarters, a massive, fortified space station, Astra's fingers danced across the control panel, bypassing layer after layer of security protocols. "We're in," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the readout, "entering through the maintenance airlock in Sector 7. Jordan guided the ship with precision, easing it through the narrow opening. They touched down in a dimly lit hangar, the silence broken only by the soft hiss of the airlock cycling. As they stepped onto the station, the reality of their situation hit home. They were alone, deep in enemy territory, with the fate of countless lives resting on their shoulders. Astra led the way, her intimate knowledge of Hirogen architecture guiding them through a labyrinth of corridors. Jordan followed close behind, every sense on high alert. The station seemed eerily quiet, adding to the tension that crackled between them. Suddenly, Astra held up a hand, freezing in place. Jordan tensed, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. A patrol of guards rounded the corner ahead, their voices drifting towards them. Without a word, Astra pulled Jordan into a recessed doorway, their bodies pressed close in the narrow space. Jordan held his breath, acutely aware of Astra's proximity. The guards passed by, oblivious to their presence. As the sound of footsteps faded, Astra met Jordan's gaze, her eyes wide with a mix of relief and something else, something neither of them dared to name. They moved on, the moment passing unspoken between them. Their progress through the station was slow and careful, each step calculated to avoid detection. Astra's expertise proved invaluable as they navigated around security checkpoints and surveillance systems. But as they descended deeper into the heart of the station, they encountered unexpected resistance. A massive security door blocked their path, its control panel pulsing with an unfamiliar energy signature. "This isn't standard Hirogen tech," Astra muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. Jordan studied the door, his mind racing. "They must have anticipated a rescue attempt. Can you bypass it?" Astra's fingers flew over the alien controls, her expression growing increasingly frustrated. "It's not responding to any known Hirogen override codes." Jordan glanced nervously down the corridor, aware that every second increased their risk of discovery. An idea struck him, born of countless hours spent tinkering with the Star Chaser's systems. "What if we reroute power from the auxiliary systems?" he suggested. "Create a feedback loop in the door's locking mechanism?" Astra's eyes lit up with understanding. "That could work, but we'll need to access the power conduits behind this panel." Working together, they pried open the wall panel, exposing a tangle of wires and circuitry. Jordan's improvisational skills complemented Astra's technical knowledge as they rewired the system, their hands moving in perfect synchronization. The door shuddered, then slid open with a reluctant groan. Beyond lay a vast chamber, rows of containment cells stretching into the distance. The hostages. As they moved among the cells, freeing the captives, Jordan and Astra made a startling discovery. The prisoners were a mix of humans and Hirogen, some clearly unwitting pawns in the slave trade, while others bore the guilty expressions of willing participants now betrayed by their former allies. "We can't trust them all," Astra whispered, her voice tight with concern. Jordan nodded grimly. "But we can't leave them behind either. We'll have to sort it out later." As the last cell door opened, alarms began to blare throughout the station. Their presence had been discovered. "Time to go," Jordan shouted over the din. He turned to the freed hostages, his voice ringing with authority. "Follow us if you want to live." They raced through the corridors, the sound of pursuit growing closer with each passing moment. Jordan's combat training kicked in as they encountered resistance, his movements fluid and precise as he neutralized threats. Astra matched him step for step, her Hirogen strength and agility proving invaluable in the close quarters of the station. Together they carved a path towards the hangar bay, the rescued hostages following in their wake. As they burst into the hangar, Jordan's heart sank. The Star Chaser, their ticket to freedom, was too small to accommodate the entire group. His eyes scanned the bay, landing on a hulking Hirogen shuttle. "There!" he shouted, pointing. "Astra, can you fly it?" She was already moving, her fingers flying over the shuttle's control panel. "I can fly anything," she replied, a fierce grin lighting up her face. As the hostages piled into the shuttle, Jordan made a split-second decision. He raced back to the Star Chaser, quickly programming its autopilot. "What are you doing?" Astra called from the shuttle's hatch. "Creating a diversion," Jordan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "She's served us well. Now she'll cover our escape." He joined Astra in the shuttle's cockpit, settling into the co-pilot seat. As they powered up the engines, the hangar bay doors began to close. "Hold on!" Astra yelled, gunning the thrusters. The shuttle shot forward, squeezing through the narrowing gap. Behind them, the Star Chaser emerged from the hangar, drawing fire from the station's defense systems. Jordan activated the shuttle's weapons array, returning fire as they hurtled through space. The comm system crackled to life, Admiral Chen's voice filling the cockpit. "Jordan, Astra, we're moving in. Give us your coordinates." As Astra relayed their position, Jordan's fingers flew over the tactical display, coordinating their retreat with the incoming fleet. The space around them erupted into chaos as the joint human-Hirogen force engaged the station's defenses. Astra skillfully piloted the shuttle through the maelstrom, her movements so in sync with Jordan's that they seemed to operate as a single entity. As they approached the safety of Chen's flagship, Jordan allowed himself a moment of reflection. Their mission had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, not just in rescuing the hostages, but in proving the power of human-Hirogen cooperation. As the shuttle touched down in the flagship's hangar, Jordan knew that their journey was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, navigating the political fallout of their discoveries and dismantling the slave trade network once and for all. But as he looked at Astra, her eyes shining with triumph and something deeper, Jordan knew that together they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. As the shuttle's hatch opened, Jordan and Astra were met with a thunderous applause. The hangar bay of Admiral Chen's flagship was packed with crew members, both human and Hirogen, their faces beaming with admiration and relief. Jordan stepped out first, extending his hand to help Astra down. The moment their feet touched the deck, they were engulfed in a sea of congratulations and gratitude. Admiral Chen pushed through the crowd, his usually stern face softened with pride. "Exceptional work, both of you," he said, clasping their shoulders. "Your mission has exceeded all expectations." Zaknar towered behind him, nodding his approval. "You have brought honor to both our peoples," he rumbled. As the initial excitement died down, the rescued hostages began to share their stories. Jordan and Astra listened intently, their expressions growing grave as the full extent of the slave trade network was revealed. Human diplomats, Hirogen warriors, and civilians from various species had all fallen victim to the insidious operation. "This information is crucial," Admiral Chen said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to act fast while we have the advantage." Within minutes, they were in the flagship's command center. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the ongoing assault on the slave trade headquarters. Chen and Zaknar stood side by side, issuing orders to their respective fleets. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," his voice rang out across the communication channels. "The intelligence gathered by Jordan and Astra has given us the edge we need. Let's finish this." The combined fleet moved with newfound purpose, their attacks precise and devastating. Jordan watched in awe as human and Hirogen ships maneuvered in perfect harmony, their tactics complementing each other flawlessly. The station's defenses, formidable as they were, began to crumble under the relentless assault. Hours passed in a blur of tactical displays and status reports. Finally, a cheer erupted from the Hirogen communications officer. "The station's main reactor is offline," he announced. "Their shields are down." Admiral Chen's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "All ships, cease fire. Prepare boarding parties." As the dust settled, Jordan and Astra found themselves leading a mixed team of humans and Hirogen onto the captured station. They moved through eerily silent corridors, securing sector after sector. "Over here!" Astra called out, her voice echoing in a vast chamber filled with computer terminals. "I think I've found their main database." Jordan joined her, his eyes widening as he scanned the information scrolling across the screens. "This goes back centuries," he breathed. "Look at these names. There are high-ranking officials from a dozen different species implicated here." As they downloaded the data, an alert flashed on one of the terminals. Astra's brow furrowed as she deciphered the Hirogen text. "Jordan," she said, her voice tight with urgency, "there's another level, a hidden detention area." They raced through the station, following Astra's directions. When they reached the hidden level, the sight that greeted them made even the hardened Hirogen warriors in their team gasp in shock. Rows upon rows of cells stretched before them, each containing captives from various species, and among them, unmistakable in their size and bearing, were more Hirogen like Astra. "By the ancestors," one of the Hirogen team members whispered. "How could this happen?" Jordan met Astra's eyes, seeing his own purpose reflected there. "Let's get them out," he said simply. They worked tirelessly, freeing the captives and coordinating their evacuation. As the last of the cells were emptied, Jordan found Astra standing alone, her hand resting on the wall of a now empty cell. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. She turned to him, her eyes shining with a mix of emotions. "I never thought I'd see the day," she said, her voice thick. "When I was captured, I lost all hope. But now," she gestured around them, "now everything has changed." As they made their way back to the flagship, news of the slave trade's downfall was already spreading across the galaxy. The political ramifications were immediate and far-reaching. On the bridge of the flagship, they watched as Zaknar received a transmission from the Hirogen homeworld. The Hirogen leader's face was grim but determined as he relayed the news. "The evidence we've uncovered has forced a reckoning," he announced. "The old guard is stepping down. My allies and I have been asked to assume leadership, and guide our people towards a new future, one without slavery. Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. Earth is undergoing similar changes, he said. I've been ordered to present our findings to a special session of the United Earth Government. There will be a purge of corrupt officials and a complete overhaul of our interstellar policies. As the implications of these changes sank in, Jordan felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Dr. Rodriguez and Commander Kresh, the leaders of the Sanctuary research team. We have a proposition for you, Dr. Rodriguez began, her eyes twinkling with excitement. In light of recent events, both Earth and the Hirogen High Council have agreed to reveal Sanctuary's existence to the galaxy. Commander Kresh continued, they're planning a summit, a gathering of human and Hirogen leaders to forge a new path forward, and they want to hold it on Sanctuary. Jordan's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He glanced at Astra, who looked equally stunned. Why Sanctuary? He asked. Because of what it represents, Dr. Rodriguez explained. A place where humans and Hirogen have already been working together, making groundbreaking discoveries. And, she paused, a smile playing at her lips, because of you two. Us, Astra echoed. Commander Kresh nodded solemnly. Your partnership has become a symbol of what's possible between our peoples. The leaders want to use your story as a foundation for building new relations. Jordan felt a mix of pride and trepidation at the thought. He reached for Astra's hand, finding comfort in her steady presence. When is this summit happening? He asked. In 2 weeks, Dr. Rodriguez replied, and you're both invited as honored guests. As Jordan and Astra absorbed this news, they knew their journey was not nearly finished. The summit on Sanctuary loomed ahead, promising to be a pivotal moment in the history of human-Hirogen relations. With the weight of two civilizations' hopes on their shoulders, they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet, helping to forge a lasting peace between their peoples.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, I liked the story, and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.